Ingram Smith, Bud Elliott, back again for another episode of the Nolecast. This is one of our instant reaction podcasts, so light on the production value. Just want to respond to the recently released schedule put out by the ACC this evening. Monday night, Bud and I are recording right around 8:30, 8:45 or so, just giving you a quick immediate impression of what we see. And I certainly won't steal the thunder here, Bud, but this looks to be about as generous schedule as one could hope for. Maybe, not as generous with the wonderful partnerships that we have with all of our sponsors, and a big tip of the hat to them as we jump into this. But the good people, Louisiana Hot Sauce, Tarpon Cellars, the dynamic team of Chad and Shannon, and always Matt Lewis and his team at Congruity. Big tip of the hat to them for everything that they do to help us structure the Nolecast. And with that, Bud, we can get into a conversation about the definitive structure of Florida State's 2022 football schedule.
But I think you really nailed it, man. I mean, if you asked Mike Norvell to draw up a schedule, would he have done much different? Given if the opponents were fixed and only the dates were in debate, I really don't know that Mike would have done this a whole lot differently. Some things before we get into the game by game breakdown that I want to hit right off the top with you. You don't play anybody coming off a bye. That's kind of cool. Now, we'll get into this. A couple teams have a bit of an easier opponent, maybe an extra day or two of rest by virtue of playing on a Thursday or Friday night, but nobody gets a bye week before you. That's kind of cool. You did get that second bye week, like we talked about 2 episodes ago. You went ahead and played the week 0 game, which means you get the second bye week, and there was some wrangling that had to be done there. If you wanted to get that second bye week and then not have to play like Clemson and LSU back-to-back, potentially. And they got their wish on that. You don't play any cold weather games. And the northern teams that come to Doak Campbell, for the most part, are playing in September, including, well, we'll get into it in a second, Boston College. This is kind of exactly what you want. This is the recipe, I think, to potentially overachieve if you're going to go ahead and shoot that gap and maybe do better than I personally think that I will project them to do, man. This really lines up potentially pretty well.
I completely agree. And one, I think that people probably, make too much out of situations like this. And thanks for joining us and listening to us make too much out of it. So I don't want to make, jump to too many conclusions. But hey, look, even in the part of the schedule where you go and you're like, well, playing, traveling to NC State and playing Clemson back to back, that's tough. Those are 2 games that I don't think you're winning this year regardless. I mean, I don't chalk them up as full L's, but I just think the way that this situates itself is really quite generous, and you have a chance to do, obviously, you got a chance to be preparing for everybody, and it's not as though you needed the release of this schedule to do that, but you have a chance to do real deep dives into the LSU and Louisville games over the course of the summer and try to prepare as much as possible for that Louisville team that gave you so much trouble last year, as far as the first half at least, and we can forever debate about the second half. But I think you've got a really nice setup, and by week 5, you're going to have a pretty good idea as to what kind of team you have, the general trajectory of the program, and this sets up. Look, there's only so many ways this was going to shake out, right? You've got, some of these teams in conference have pretty definitive places where they have to land on the schedule. But when we started to hear about kind of the 4 or 5 different groupings of this schedule and how it could play out at the end of last week or whenever it was that we booked hotel rooms when we started to hear about the Friday Florida game, this is the one that I think everybody in Tallahassee would have preferred, and this is as a general as nice a setup as you could hope for Mike Norvell and his staff to take that extra step that this fan base is so longing for.
It was, I think I told you on Thursday night, by the way, about the Friday game against UF, because I know I was on the phone with Chad and Shannon because they were driving back from Tallahassee on Friday, and then this weekend was just horrendously cold 7-on-7. I did get to see a lot of prospects. We'll talk about that in a future show, kind of when all that shakes out, and we'll figure out exactly who FSU has a chance with. But let's go ahead and throw up on the screen here. If you're watching us on YouTube, that is awesome. Please do give us that like and subscribe. Give us that awesome thumbs up. If you're listening to us, well, we will make sure to keep you in mind as well. We'll read off the schedule. If you're listening to us on Spotify, give us 5 stars. Can't give us a written review yet, but we really do appreciate those 5 stars. Keep us as the #1 Florida State show in the country. And of course, if you have already rated and reviewed us on Apple Podcasts, you could do so again if you haven't done so in the last few months. And we always appreciate that to keep that going, as well as Ingram. How did they vote for us in the podcast awards competition?
Yes, absolutely, and a big thank you. We surged to the top of the ranks as I thought we would have a strong showing, and our listeners just wildly blown away by the support we received. But the website is sportspodcastawards.com. Voting will continue until the beginning of March, so certainly a lot of time to go in and make sure that you've exhausted all those alternate email addresses that you may have, or ones that I guess you don't even really need to create a second or third email if you wanted to. But no, in all seriousness, sportspodcastawards.com. It does look like it's going to be us and a Miami Hurricane podcast kind of duking it out for the top spot. So we're fully confident that we have the support to come out on top, and thank you to all of you who made your way over to sportspodcastawards.com and voted for the Nolecast in the category of Best College Sports Podcast.
Dude, that is incredible. Please go Sports Podcast Awards and keep us on top. It's very important. Razor thin lead right now, I think we have reason to believe. So we will need each and every one of y'all's votes. All right, so FSU's schedule. Open against Duquesne. In the Dome the next week against LSU. That's the Superdome there in New Orleans. Very excited to be going to that one. Bye week at Louisville on a Friday night. Host Boston College. Host Wake Forest. At NC State. Host Clemson. Another bye week. Host Georgia Tech. At Miami. At Syracuse. Host Louisiana. That's the team Billy Napier came from. They won the Sun Belt last year, and I think had 10 or 11 wins. And then host the Florida Gators. Okay. You want to get into this kind of game by game and just some general early thoughts, maybe some trap spots, some spots where the opponents could be trapped. It's weird to talk about FSU as a potential trap game for somebody because the logo still carries weight, even if the guys in the jerseys don't always in recent years. So, yeah, let's get into this, man. I have a note for you on Duquesne.
Yeah, I am I've kind of carved out a niche for myself as hey, this game isn't a guaranteed by any means when it comes to our projections percentages when we do the, as we get closer to the season and kind of our preseason series that we've done. This one, I mean, look, you can obviously lose any game, as we were all reminded and painfully aware of in this fan base. But this is a game that you, in all likelihood, have a 99% chance of winning, and it will be one of the worst teams that you've played in a long, long time.
Now, look, they don't play in a great league. However, they did beat Ohio last year. Now, Ohio was weird. They had Frank Solich retire early on, or excuse me, not early on, very late in the year. Frank Solich retired. So they had a new coach. They were still really working some things out. It was kind of a trap game for Ohio in between playing, I think, Syracuse and maybe Illinois. I'm trying to recall exactly who Ohio had there early in that schedule. They beat Ohio in Ohio. Now, in fairness, Ohio had a 98% post-game win expectancy. It was one of the most ridiculous upsets of the year in terms of crazy bounces, defensive touchdowns, safeties, things like that are we know are not really repeatable skill. But they were able to play with an actual FBS team, even though Ohio was one of the worst Division I teams last year. They also lost to TCU, which was not a great TCU team. And recall, TCU did not really start great because of the whole Max Duggan thing early in the year, recovering from, I believe, COVID. They beat them 45-3. And then Duquesne beats Virginia Lynchburg, which I don't even know if that's FCS. That might be like a lower division game for them. 56-7. They beat Merrimack 37-14. They squeaked out one against Bryant 39-34. They lost to Sacred Heart 31-13. St. Francis beat them 17-10, and then Duquesne bounces back and beats LIU, which I believe is Long Island University, 34-28. Then they blank Wagner 44-0, and they sneak by Central Connecticut State 31-27. This is a team you should handle pretty easily. I can certainly understand if you want to. I cannot believe I'm saying this because of the whole Jacksonville State thing last year. But given that it's week 0, if you are trying to work some more players into the lineup to try to figure out like who actually plays well in the game, I don't really blame you for it. You just need to make sure that you're prepared to actually win the game, unlike last year. So, yeah. Then you go to the Dome.
Yeah, I mean, we'll certainly have time to preview all these games, and we'll have a better look at it once we get through spring and see what the final portal activity looks like. But maybe a little bit of a less than 50-50 chance of winning that game is a quick from the hip projection from me.
I think that's fair.
You go, you have a good time. You hope that you come out on the right side of it. You have a week to get right, and then you jump straight into to conference play here. And like I said, by the week 5, you're going to have a great barometer as you are. Week 7 also provides a decent kind of milestone, if you want to use that, or mile marker, maybe a better phrase. But yeah, you travel to Louisville on a Friday night. It's easy to sit here and use phrases like circle that game or, game of great importance. But game number 3 for Florida State is going to be a pretty good feel as far as where this program is, what kind of defensive philosophy you approach that game with after having one of the more disappointing showings in quite a long time as far as your last year's first half performance. So you go, you play LSU, you see how that turns out, and immediately shift your focus and have, 13 days to get ready to play, or 12 days to get ready to play in a really meaningful Louisville game.
Yeah, man, I think that's right. Just as a refresher, LSU has the number 2 ranked transfer class right now, with 4 4-stars and 7 3-star transfers in the class. They really needed some help in the secondary and reloaded there. They got a first-team All-Big 12 corner from Oklahoma State, who left after Oklahoma State's defensive coordinator left for the Buckeyes. They got SEC All-Freshman team defensive tackle Mekhi Wingo to transfer. I know Missouri's probably pretty annoyed about that. They did get the offensive lineman who I think FSU was kind of up and down on from FIU in Miles Frazier. My guess is he'll probably be a starter for them. They grabbed Greg Brooks, who was a starter for Arkansas at corner, and he'll probably be a starter for the Tigers. They also grabbed a kid I really like. I thought FSU should have gone on, Wes Weeks, who I think will be a very good linebacker for them in time. Maybe not immediately. And Noah Kane, who you might recall from IMG by way of Baton Rouge in Texas. He played for Penn State, and then he was injured up there. We'll see kind of how much he's able to bounce back. But they certainly went out and got a lot of help in the transfer portal so far in Brian Kelly's tenure. We'll see how well those guys mesh. I really don't like how can you trust your priors from this LSU team, given all the crap that was going on in Baton Rouge last year with the head coach and that coaching staff. I mean, you could say, hey, I had this team rated as like the number 70 team or the number 20 team last year or whatever. Who knows, dude? They were so up and down. I really don't know what to expect in this game. If I had to guess, I would say probably LSU is like a 6 or 7 point favorite in the Dome. but it's a total guess. And FSU also brought in a whole lot of transfers, depending on on what you guys think of them. So then that bye week, and then like you said, at Louisville last year. This is kind of one of those tricky games to remember back. So FSU lost 31-23. They were down, was it 24-0, I believe, in this thing? And then we'll always get into a debate about this. I think Louisville eased off the gas and stopped attacking. Other people don't. That's up for debate. What's not up for debate is that you didn't have Jordan Travis in this one. And, of course, if you did, maybe it's closer early on. I don't know if the final result is actually different because, again, Louisville might have kept its foot on the gas. And Malik Cunningham played extremely well last year overall, and he's back. So that's a recurring theme you'll notice, Ingram. A lot of teams bringing back their quarterbacks this year on FSU schedule, which is not great for Adam Fuller / Randy Shannon's defense. We'll have to see if that brain trust will be able to come up with some more stops this year. Certainly, I think a little bit less talented defensively than they were last year with the loss of the two defensive ends as far as, high-level talent. Ooh, sorry about this. What is this? Harbaugh is planning to officially interview with Minnesota on Wednesday.
A man who looks set on returning to Sunday ball. As we shift from one Friday.
Hold on. I do want to point out something.
Mm-hmm.
Two things. I like you get the extra day of rest by playing at Louisville on the Friday because you're coming off a bye. So you have, 12 days to prep for this thing? Also, Louisville has to go to UCF before coming back. So that will actually be the rare road trip, come home, short rest game. If I'm doing my power ratings, you get FSU off a bye, and you have Louisville off of back-to-back roadies because they're also at Syracuse and then at UCF and then come home to play a Friday game. I'm legitimately going to give an extra 0.5 to 0.75 points on the point spread for that. I think that's actually meaningful.
Good thing to point out there.
I know we're probably running long. We're 3 games in, right. And one of them was Duquesne.
That's all right. You go from Louisville to a Friday night game with Louisville to a Saturday game with Boston College. Boston College, you get them to come down to Tallahassee during the time of year, as we're all aware. September is still nice. Certainly has the potential to be nice and toasty for any kind of visitor, particularly from the Northeast. Quarterback coming back in play here as well as Djokovic is. It will be part of that Boston College team who comes down to play Florida State. This is not an absolute certain. This is one of the better, conference games that you feel confident about. I think, BC, Georgia Tech is probably the one that you feel the most confident about, but I would say BC and Syracuse probably reside right there with them. So this is one of the games that you really need to win if you're going to have a successful season and, sets you right up to host Wake Forest. And like I said, that is your week 5 kind of mile marker, and need to be probably 3-2 at that point. Obviously 4-1 is a fantastic early part of the season result, but I really think you'll have a great feel for the trajectory of the program, where your recruiting momentum is when we play Saturday, October 1st, and that game ends. Going to have a pretty good idea as to where Florida State's season stands and what the 22 season ultimately will look like.
And I think you have a fairly good chance of being 3-2 in that game. I mean, I have you an underdog at Louisville. I have you an underdog at LSU. Wake Forest to me is a coin flip, given that they have Hartman back, and Boston College is kind of a weighted coin flip. If you win the Duquesne game, which you should, can you find a way to go 2-2? I think that's possible. If you don't, it's probably a bit of a longer season, and I think you're probably fighting for bowl eligibility regardless. Although some people are already predicting apparently 9-3 and 8-4. So okay, that's possible. Certainly within the realm of possibility. maybe a far off realm, but some kind of realm. I want to point this out though. So Boston College does get Maine the week before. AccuView Weather says that the average temperature on September 24th in Tallahassee is high of 88. I am going to throw the BS flag on that. Anybody who went to school in Tallahassee knows September 20-ish game is usually, it just feels hotter than that. Trust me. Like that feels much hotter than that. However, while BC has an easy game before coming to Tallahassee, Wake Forest does not. Wake Forest has a game against Clemson. Now, look, I know that Wake Forest smoked you last year. And for all the people who want to say that I'm negative, which, okay, maybe I am. And why can you say Louisville, kind of ran you off the field? Well, they did. It was like 24-0, right? Before I think they let off the gas. I will tell you that the Wake Forest game, I think actually on a down-to-down basis was largely closer than that final score indicated. You had some really kind of questionable, maybe even to say BS, calls that changed that game by the officiating. And Wake Forest was definitely a better team than you were last year. I'm not going to debate that. But I will say, like, you were getting stops and moving the ball somewhat on them in that ball game. And then you had the kind of BS nonsense late hit out of bounds when the guy wasn't actually out of bounds, right? And then you had was it the roughing the punter penalty where, like, it was, I'm trying to remember, there was another one that was just absolutely absurd. And they kept drives alive and they went for 15 plus yards. And I was like, this is just kind of crazy. Like, it's not, they're not really that much different. So that's why I don't have Wake Forest favored in Tallahassee. I know they bring back a ton of good players, and they bring back Sam Hartman. But I do think you played with it, like you physically played with those guys last year better than I think a 3-touchdown final score indicates. And yes, they did burn you on 2 deep balls, which should be noted. And Hartman's really good, and that offense is hard to stop, and they're extremely well coached, and they'll be very experienced. Granted. I'm just not sure physically that the difference, like, I don't think they're that much better athletes than you are at most spots.
Wake Forest, certainly hope not. But yeah, we'll.
But you're not really signing a whole lot of difference makers from recent years, so it's not obvious that I mean.
No, you're
not. Signing day just happened. It was a disaster.
Let's be careful with walking down that road again of cold reality-based statements. Okay, so there you are through 5 games. You travel to NC State. Look, obviously you've got a chance to go and win that game. I don't particularly like your chances here. As I alluded in the first couple minutes, you get Clemson and NC State back-to-back here with the October 8th game at NC State. You host Clemson a week later. Yeah, if we were talking about a team that was really contending for the Atlantic, I would have a hard time facing these two teams in back-to-back weeks. That's not where you are right now. I don't know that you necessarily have a great chance of winning either of these games.
No, you got physically dominated last year on both sides of the line of scrimmage.
So this is going to be a tough
in both games.
Middle of the schedule probably to weather as a Florida State fan, but you know where you stand now, and well, certainly I'm not just glossing over these games, but you have these 2 really tough games sandwiched together, and then you get a bye week before you move into a final phase of your season that I think sets up exceptionally well for you.
100%. This stretch of quarterbacks you play with Cunningham, Dracovic, Hartman, Leary, and then I think you can argue, obviously, that DJ, given his overall track record, is still pretty dangerous. But last year he played poorly. So you have to kind of make up your mind or maybe you don't. Maybe you can just sit and watch the games about how good you think he'll be. They also signed Klubnik, who is a pretty nice recruit. So you have to think that Clemson will probably have improved quarterback play this year, but there's no guarantee of that. There is almost certainly a guarantee that you can't physically handle them with what they bring on defense. So, anyway, and NC State physically dominated you last year. Almost all of their important players are back. They get both the linebackers back off injury. They might have the best linebacking core in the country. That could be that could be problematic. And to me, it's why it's very important to find a way to go 3-2 in the first 5, because there's a very good chance you lose those next 2. And 3-4 sounds a whole lot better than 2-5. Entering the bye week 3-4, you can reasonably project, hey, got to take care of some business here, but we have a chance to make a bowl. 2-5, still have a chance to make a bowl, just tougher. So that bye week, I like the timing of this bye week, dude. I think you're probably going to take some lumps in October, and then you get your nice bye week.
Yeah, sets up for you well. Georgia Tech's game that I alluded to a second ago, as far as probably your most favorable conference game in general, probably the most favorable game you have on this schedule, to be honest with you, outside of your opener against Duquesne. Georgia Tech has had some really significant defections via the portal. Obviously, most people are going to be aware of the running back who went and looks to have a very decent chance of being Alabama's starter next year, Jahmyr Gibbs. They also lost a pretty damn good defensive tackle to the portal recently. This is not a Georgia Tech podcast. I'll make this quick. Feels like they're playing out kind of the final days of the Jeff Collins administration to me here in Atlanta, but we'll see whether or not that comes to fruition. And Georgia Tech, over the past couple times you played them, has not been the win that maybe I'm describing it as here on the schedule, but I feel fairly confident about this one before you shift your focus to 2 road games at Miami and Syracuse.
I'd like you to turn your attention to the final 5 games for Jeff Collins of this season, but also maybe of his career there in Atlanta. If you look to the screen, at Georgia Tech, at Vatech, Miami, at UNC, at Georgia.
Had a little travel 65 miles east to Athens. Yeah.
Also, they open with Clemson, and we know that Dabo does not like Jeff Collins and wants to put it on him.
Yep.
Then they also have to face Ole Miss and UCF in the non-conference.
I texted you about a month ago, and I was like, hey, have you looked at what Georgia Tech's non-conference is next year? I mean, it's just whatever AD scheduled this. Good Lord. I mean,
FSU schedule's stupid, by the way, too. Like,
yeah.
you should be playing 3 cupcakes if you're going to play an SEC non-conference opponent in addition to a Power 5 schedule, but they don't. They end up playing Louisiana, which is one of the best G5s, and also LSU. So, if you swap their schedule with like Miami's schedule, I'm probably a win and a half higher, maybe 2 wins higher, legitimately. How many games is Georgia Tech favored in? Western Carolina?
2.
You think they're favored at UCF?
No.
They're favored at home over Duke.
Those are the 2 for me.
Are they favored at home over UVA? Because I think UVA might really suck.
Yeah, Virginia could be a toss-up. Maybe they're favored. No more than 3, certainly.
That's like, I'm not saying Jeff Collins has done a good job there. I've been a little disappointed in how they've recruited, but good God, even if he had done a good job, you wouldn't notice it. Not with that schedule. That's even tougher than FSU's schedule. All right. Sorry about that little tangent there. They lost. Hold on. The name Jared Ivey for them is the name of the kid who they lost, and that's a fairly big deal because you guys might be aware of this, but FSU's offensive line is not always considered a strength by some publications, and for them to lose Jared Ivey, I'm pulling up his numbers here, that's a fairly big deal to lose them. Not only that, but to a team they play. Mm-hmm. He's going to Ole Miss.
Yeah.
So Georgia Tech here. Let me just pull up Ivey's numbers. I think he was potentially their best returning defender. Yeah. So Jared Ivey listed as 1.5 sacks, but 16 pressures, and led the team, I believe, for guys who had at least 200 snaps, pass rushing with an 8% pressure rate, and is credited with 10 incompletions or interceptions caused, which also leads the team. Speaking of which, Georgia Tech, absolutely horrendous at drawing penalties for holding. That's the leading guy who to cause holding penalties on our defensive line had 2 on the year. That'll probably get a unsportsmanlike from the coach flag if they don't get a couple more calls there. Anyway, Jared Ivey also tied for the team lead in tackles for loss with 9. That's just tough, man, to lose a guy like that when you don't really recruit at a super high level. Anyway, I have FSU. There is a chance FSU is a double-digit favorite in that game, depending on how things go. And they could have quit by then. I mean, if they start, let's say they don't win all 3 of the games they're favored in. Like, let's say they lose to Duke or UVA, then they're 2-5 at that point.
Going to be tough. Going to be tough for Georgia Tech. I don't see a whole lot of resilient attitude currently coming out of that program, but certainly
they do have a Thursday game, by the way, before FSU, so they will come out. Like, this is the one situation where the opponent has a little bit of extra rest.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, November 5th, travel to Coral Gables. That'll be fun. That'll be an awful lot of fun. Miami fans certainly will have had this one on their schedule for about 364 days to think about. And, I don't necessarily like your chances immediately, but, go down there and play the game, see how it turns out. And, look, it would be a fantastic win, but one of the games that, probably one of the 2 or 3 games is from a percentage standpoint that you're the least likely to win.
I would agree with you on that. They also get 2 pretty cushy games before this. They get Duke and UVA. I project Duke and UVA to be the 2 worst teams in the conference, probably by a lot. So while they don't get a bye week before, they certainly get. Probably the 2 worst teams in the ACC, and then they get FSU at home. So I would have Miami favored in that game. But not an unwinnable game, I guess. You just got to see how it goes there. They won't be like 20-point dogs unless the wheels somehow totally come off, which is unlikely. And then you go to Syracuse, man.
To Syracuse in the dome that's named after a air conditioning company. This kind of cements that you have no cold weather games here on the schedule. Syracuse is a interesting situation themselves. You don't know what they're going to be at this point in the season. I think it's kind of easy chatter to look at programs and talk about, hey, will this team acquit? Will this team acquit? But Syracuse at that point,
it'll be senior day, right? Because their last 2 games after that are roadies.
Yeah, so an emotional day inside the Carrier Dome. I say that dripped in sarcasm, but we'll have to see. I personally think this is a place where you have to win if you're going to have a decent season from a Florida State perspective. Whether you win the Miami game, lose it, you got to flush that from your system. Focus on these next 2 games that are, both winnable, but by no means a toss-up, or by no means a guaranteed thing at all when you're talking about Syracuse and Louisiana. And if you could win these 2 games here, get to 6, possibly 7 prior to the Florida game, that would be massive, and kind of two must-win games in my opinion. Sandwiched between the 2 interstate rivals.
I would agree with that. I will say a couple things here. Number one, they do get the back and the quarterback Schrader. They had a lot of success with the QB run game stuff last year. So we'll see how that goes for Cuse. I should have noted, by the way, Georgia Tech got a quarterback that a couple people I know are fairly excited about, named Zach Gibson, who was playing for Akron. And, of course, Akron was horrendous last year, and they fired their coach, and now they have Joe Moorhead as the coach. But if you go and look at the numbers, everybody else who wasn't Zach Gibson when they played quarterback for Akron, and I think he got hurt a little bit because their offensive line was, just like a fire hazard. they were horrendous, and his numbers were okay. So it is possible that Georgia Tech gets a step up in quarterback play. If it seems like Jeff Sims at this point will be their floor, and they may be able to upgrade over him. However, they also have a team coming in, as you noted, in Louisiana. I don't really know what Louisiana's going to look like this year, man. They lost a whole lot of guys to the transfer portal. I don't have an updated roster on them yet. I looked. I don't think they've put out a roster for spring yet. If they have, I missed it. I don't know what to expect from these guys. It probably won't be better than they were last year. And interestingly, last year, they won the conference. Their power ratings didn't totally match up with what they were. Like, it felt like they were kind of lucky in a couple games, but they also had some very impressive performances. Like, they're not a bad Sun Belt team. They are obviously FBS. It's D1, not like one of these FCS squads. And Florida took their coach as well as a number of transfers out. I don't know. Like, I really don't know what to expect.
Their schedule yet to be determined, so hard for us to get a feel exactly as to what they will be, coming off of. I do think that this is a better team than some are categorizing in the fan base, just as they're immediately responding to the schedule. But still a game that if I were to give you some kind of, percentage just off the cuff, I would say that I think Florida State's got somewhere around a 65% chance of winning or something like that. So a game that you will be favored in. You need to win, as I said earlier, if you want to have a successful season. And you travel to Syracuse, come back to Tallahassee, host Louisiana, and then immediately shift pivot your focus to a 6-day rest game against Florida.
Here's who they lost in the portal. Starting tackle Cameron Waits to the Gators. I believe starting guard Osiris Torrance to the Gators. Both those guys are rated as 4-star transfers. I guess we'll see on that. Montrell Johnson, 4-star transfer rating running back to the Gators. Imani Bailey, 4-star rated transfer running back to TCU. Makai Williams Garner, who we gave 3 stars to, high 3 stars, who transferred to LSU. And then receiver Kyron Lacey, who we have not actually put a grade on yet because he literally just jumped in the portal, but LSU already took him. So, look, you may agree or disagree with some of these transfer grades. What I will tell you, though, and they lost Kobe Hilton, one of their other starting safeties, to UTEP. It is almost impossible for a team like Louisiana to lose 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 scholarship players to the portal to Florida and LSU, plus another starter to TCU, and not have a significant drop-off, in addition to losing their head coach. There's a chance they take a really big step back. I don't know that. I think they've run a good program. It's just hard for me to tell. I'm playing the odds here. My guess is that they take a pretty good step back.
Florida, I mean, interesting that all these kids that we just talked about leaving the Louisiana program in the portal to Florida. I guess it's interesting that you're playing a Friday night game. I mean, that certainly is a TV-directed occurrence. Very tough on our, friends in the local economy, our great partners, Madison Social. I feel for them. Having a Friday game against Florida is a real toughie as far as, students being on campus, et cetera, et cetera. Not that they would be on campus, but you would just get more people back on a Saturday than you would a Friday. But it's a Friday game. It's set up for TV. It's just the world that we live in 2022. Yeah, that's where you are. Black Friday night game, in all likelihood against Florida.
I mean, I think I agree with you there on that. That I don't know. It's hard for me to spin it that this is the positive. This is kind of the one thing about the schedule I don't like. Like you said, it's hard for the students to get back. Tallahassee is not an easy place to get to at all. It's a full day's trip, so Are you going to rush home for Thanksgiving and then get back in your car and leave at like 7 a.m. to get back in time for the game so you can tailgate some? If you live in, what's Tampa? Inland Tampa's kind of more 4 hours. If you live closer to the coast, 4.5, plus day after Thanksgiving traffic's probably not going to be light. If you're Miami, that's 8.5. If you're down there like Fort Myers, Naples, it's going to be a solid 6. Orlando's 3.5-ish, 4. Atlanta, obviously, you make that drive plenty. That sucks to get back for. And if they're not going to have a great season, you got to imagine like fewer students are going to make this than normal.
Well, Friday, I mean, you just, you leave Tallahassee on a Tuesday night, Wednesday morning, see your family, turn right around and come back on Friday. It's just tough logistically. And, it's one of those things that if you're a 9-win team hosting Florida, then people get over it. People people get up and leave the Thanksgiving table halfway through, if that's the case, to go see an elite level Florida State team playing. But, where the program is right now, it's going to be hard on the fan base, and certainly, like I said, hard on our friends in the local economy. So always important to support them whenever possible. And that is what it is. It's a Black Friday game. It'll be interesting to see what kind of TV number that draws, as it'll be one of the more marketable products that you have during that window of time where this whole collective country kind of just lays on the couch and watches football for 48 hours.
Had they ever played this game on a Friday? Like, is this the first time in the series history?
Not in the modern era. No, I mean, I know that. Well, no, I know. I don't think.
I was going to call my folks and ask if they ever remembered like having to turn right back around.
Yeah.
But none of the dates that are listed on Winspedia. Can I find it? I don't think. Look, the ACC gets 3 Friday night games guaranteed per year, I believe. Last year they played somebody on a Friday night, right? Within the league. Who did they play last year? I remember watching this. Was it Vatek and UVA?
Yeah, I mean that seems right to me, but
let me check scores. I gotta say, I felt like we did some pretty good prepared podcasting this week, but this question I didn't really think to look up yet.
So that was
been week 13,
November 27th. That was a Saturday game.
All right. So, NC State UNC was the day after Thanksgiving.
Okay.
If they're going to do it to the Tar Heels, they'll do it to you. That's just kind of how the league schedule works out. No, I kind of doubt this becomes a routine thing for you. There's only so many asks you can make. They probably got to pick when their bye weeks were, or at least requested it. They didn't have to play Clemson immediately after they played LSU, which is a huge win for them. I'm sure Clemson didn't really want to do that necessarily where they are in their schedule either. It is what it is with the TV deal. I don't think you had a whole lot of control over it. And no, I wouldn't really expect it to be that way next year, but I could be wrong. Maybe ESPN likes it so much they decide to put it in Gainesville. I don't mean this as a slight on Gainesville or basically saying like we should put it on Saturday in Tallahassee and Friday in Gainesville. However, logistically, as far as allowing fans to get to the games, which I know TV doesn't really care about all that much, but if they did, honestly, it's much easier to get to Gainesville from almost all points in the state than it is to Tallahassee. So if you wanted to, like playing on Friday nights in Gainesville, maybe more Saturday during the day in Tallahassee, to me, would be a decent trade-off. I'm sure Florida fans would totally disagree with that, and I don't blame them. It's probably not really fair to them. But just from a pure travel standpoint for fans, it's also not going to be easy for Gators fans to get to Tallahassee on Friday.
No, it's not. I mean, it's that's just a toughie in general. And I know TV isn't too concerned about attendance, but certainly the the atmosphere and all those things are that of what makes a good TV product, and we'll just have to see. I personally think this is a little bit of a dicey road we're walking down, but that's where we are as far as college football and the beholden nature that it has with certain networks and TV in general. And we can sit here and bemoan it. And it was not when we talked about it at the end of last week, it wasn't a great idea. I didn't think it was a great idea then, and I don't think it is now. But it is what it is. It's schedule set, and Florida State will get ready to host Florida on a Friday night.
Dude. All right. Bowl game?
I certainly think a bowl game is a expectation at a minimum with this schedule. You really need to be at 6 wins minimum going into the Friday night game that we just discussed, if not 7.
Yeah. Would you bet your car on it?
I love my car, bud. I
know. I'm trying to gauge your confidence level after seeing this. Like, is this bet that bottle of scotch that Shannon Chad sent you?
Yeah,
or is it more bet your car on
it? I would feel fairly comfortable. I mean, absent wild things that cannot be foreseen, I would. Obviously, I'd love to check in with you after the final round of portal activity here. But in my heart of hearts, I expect Florida State to go to a bowl game this year. Absolutely.
I think so. Yeah. I think so. If I'm Vegas, I'm putting this at 6. I think, with like a little juice to the over, or maybe 6.5 juice under.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see. Portal will likely determine it, man. I will note this last thing before we go, or at least last thing for me. People are like, as long as Jordan stays healthy for all 12 games, this is an 8-win schedule. That is not, and has never been, a realistic expectation given who he is as a player, both in terms of the style with which he plays and how long it seems to take him to get over injuries and how much practice we know he misses. If you're projecting Florida State with 12 games of Jordan Travis, I believe you're making a mistake in projections. It's like when you do fantasy baseball, I probably shouldn't give this away because, I know we got some guys in the can't call it Tomahawk Fantasy Baseball League. Like, you're not going to project a catcher to have 690 at bats. It just doesn't. To me, that's kind of how you have to do this. Anyway, pretty much what I got, man. The schedule's kind of a gift given who you played.
Sets up well for you. Need to take advantage of a fairly friendly structure here, and hopefully it is. Hopefully it's Mike Norvell and staff getting 7 regular season wins, going to a bowl game. Bowl games at this point are a flip of the coin, but going to a bowl game as a 7-win team and fully being able to sell momentum on the trail, being able to show continued progress to those that support the program, and these set of games that we've discussed and this helmet schedule that everybody will look at over the next 6 or 7 months as we make our way through the lean time of the college football schedule has given Mike Norvell and his staff, a staff that was cemented with contracts today, as we alluded to in the previous show, every opportunity in the world to continue their climb and continue to try to build upon what has been a little bit of a shaky first 2 years in Tallahassee.
All right, man. I will see you, I don't know, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, somewhere. We should probably recap National Signing Day.
Yeah, we probably should. But it'll be quick. In fact, that moment of pause you just gave may have done it. But yeah.
Yeah. I think that's it. Dugan's confirmed. We've talked about that, I think, for 2 weeks now. They didn't find anybody better. And like we know they're actively searching. Still no GM. I think the Oregon State guy, Derek Ray, is certainly in play. I'll say that.
Interesting. Okay. a name to watch for, as always, if you get a chance to support us on Spotify, Apple Pod, whatever it may be. Support all our wonderful sponsors. It is greatly appreciated. Sportspodcastawards.com is the website if you wish to go and give us that extra vote. And from Bud, myself, everybody else associated with the Nolecast, we'll be back with you either later on in the week or during the weekend for another episode. But for now, that's the show for tonight. Thank you so much for listening.